Good morning, everyone. Thank you for joining us. We're going to give folks one more minute to join us, and then we will get started with today's conversation.
Hello.
Hello.
Morning.
Thanks for joining us. We will get started here in we're going to wait one more minute so folks can jump on.
Yes, ma'am. I have a quick question.
Sure.
Um, if you wanted to take this class live, where would you go? I've been trying to figure that out.
So, first of all, this is not a DSP Code of Ethics class that will count for required training. And I'm going to go over that once we kind of get started.
Okay.
Okay.
Okay. Yes, ma'am. Thank you.
No, great question. Thank you for asking. All right, well, we'll go ahead and get started. If you don't mind, if you aren't asking a question, if you can just make sure to put yourself on mute, that just helps us with feedback and everything. But please know that you are more than welcome to uh, unmute, ask questions, jump into the conversation at any time.
Yeah, there we go. And is that
Yeah.
better? I was hearing an echo.
Yes.
Yeah, okay.
Thank you. I'm not hearing it now, so thank you very much. All right. Well, good morning, everyone. Welcome to Network 19. Network 19 is a free space, a free platform provided through 19 Services Incorporated to bring together provider agencies, independent providers, and folks who are engaged in Ohio's developmental disabilities field for the sharing of information, for networking and connecting. And so we do these sessions monthly on the third Thursday of the month. We have two sessions from 10 to 11:30. We open our session to agency providers. Typically, it's a similar topic, but the conversation is often different, whether you're an agency or an independent provider. So at 11:30, we do a 1 hour session for independent providers. You are welcome to join us for any of those sessions. We had a great question. I think it was from I'm going to say your name wrong. Marmlama Hudson. Thank you. At the beginning of the session, Marmlama asked about the training and where to get this as a live training. So first and foremost, Network 19s are not trainings that we are presenting to meet any department required training. These are informal conversation sessions, open to the world. So we don't use a curriculum required by the department. And while you can use these to satisfy general training requirements, it does not meet the requirements for any of the training specified by DODD. These sessions are only virtual. We do not have a live session or an in-person session. We do record these sessions, and those sessions are then made available on our YouTube channel for folks to go back and listen to. So today we are going to talk about the DSP Code of Ethics, and my name is Ann Weissent. I am the Provider Outreach Coordinator for 19 Services, and we are super excited to have with us Haida Hill, who is also one of the Network 19 co-host, I guess, and works with 19 Services as well. And then our special guest today is Tony Thomas. Some of you may know Tony. Tony is an Ohioan at heart, worked at a large agency in the Cuyahoga County area for many, many years as the executive director, recently retired, moved to New York, and is now working as a consultant with the National Alliance of Direct Support Professionals, who authors and puts out the DSP Code of Ethics. So we are really, really pleased to have Tony. Thank you for being here, Tony.
Thanks, Sam.
All right, Haida, if we can get started with the slides. While Haida's doing that, I will let everybody know just at the beginning. Not only will this be on our Network 19 YouTube channel, but you will also receive an email after the session, probably early next week, that will include the slide deck so that you can access all the links that are embedded in the slide deck. You'll also get any handouts that we reference. You will also get a training certificate, which again can count towards those 6 hours of any trainings you can take. And then you will also get a link to the recording so that you can go back and watch it again if you'd like. All right, next slide. So we would love to see you. Feel free to turn your cameras on. It's great to put faces and names together. I already see some folks that I know. Hi, Carol. And so it's great to see folks. But if you are multitasking, which I know we all do, or you're not comfortable, please feel free to leave it off. But you're more than welcome to show your face and be on camera. Same thing with conversation, though we ask you to be muted just to keep the feedback down, and from us hearing any confidential conversations you may be having. Please feel free to unmute at any time, ask a question, jump in, show an experience, or share an experience, and just network with us. You can also use the chat box to put any questions in. We will monitor that and try to get to them throughout the presentation. If not, we will wrap around to those at the end. And then, as I said, you will get a copy of everything emailed to you early next week. All right, next slide. So I know I've thrown out the acronym NADSP a couple times already this morning, and not everyone always knows what our acronyms are. So just want to explain a little bit about NADSP. NADSP is the National Alliance of Direct Support Professionals, and it was founded in 1996. It came out of involvement with the Kennedy family. As you all know, the Kennedy family has a very long history of advocating for persons with developmental disabilities because of their family situation and having a family member with a developmental disability. And that has actually, passed through generations of the Kennedy family. And it was John F. Kennedy Jr. Who back in the early 90s became more involved in that movement and helped to establish the National Alliance of Direct Support Professionals. It was established to not only recognize the role of caregivers in the DD field, but also to elevate the role of those direct support professionals. Even going back to 1996, there was a philosophy and a mission to make sure that direct support professionals truly were viewed and recognized for their skills and for the professionalism that they bring to the field. And NADSP has continued to focus on that work by promoting and providing resources, training, information, and advocacy to promote a professional, competent, and ethical workforce. If you have not had an opportunity, please check out the NADSP website. There is a lot of great recorded webinars and trainings on there. They also offer trainings very relevant to topics that affect DSPs in their daily provision of services. Generally, those are free and they're provided on a regular basis. So please check out their website. There will be a link at the end of this session embedded in the slides that will take you directly to their portion of the website with the code of ethics information. But peruse their website because there is a lot of good information on there. There's also the ability to become a member of the National Alliance of Direct Support Professionals. It is open to not just agencies and executive leadership leadership, but it is also open to your direct support professionals. We also in Ohio have a local chapter that is affiliated with NADSP, previously called the Ohio Alliance of Direct Support Professionals, now called Lighthouse Cove. So again, that's at a state level. So you can also engage with them. And just the purpose of making sure that you're aware of both of those entities is that, again, in addition to the code of ethics, they both strive and work hard to promote the professionalism of the work that you do. Next slide, please. So let's just talk a little bit about the code of ethics. Where did it come from? Why do we have it? Why is it important? It is so important that back in, I believe it was 2000, might have been 2019. I can't remember, Tony, exactly what year. The National Alliance of Direct Support Professionals brought their national convention to Cleveland. And at that time, I and some other folks that were working for the Ohio Department of Developmental Disabilities, as well as some of our provider agencies here in Ohio, had the opportunity to meet directly with the staff and leadership from the National Alliance of Direct Support Professionals. And at that time, we talked a lot about the code of ethics, and we talked a lot about how important it would be in Ohio for our direct support workforce to not only be aware of the code of ethics, but also to strive to have them embody those tenets in the work that they do every day. And so one of the reasons it's important for you all to know about this and for your staff to know about this is that at that time, the state of Ohio decided to embed that training into state rule. So as you all, I'm sure know, that is one of the required trainings is code of ethics. And it came out of that conversation. But where did the code of ethics come from? So in the late 90s, institutional based care was really a habilitative model. It was based on people living in large congregate settings. There wasn't really an opportunity for individualized care, individualized services. But in the late 1990s, we began to see that model shift from more that medical habilitative model to a model that was built upon person-centered supports, community integration, and recognizing the rights of individuals to be active participants in their service delivery planning and service delivery implementation. Early in the 2000s, the National Alliance recognized with their partner agencies a need for a formal guide to address DSP decision making. They recognized that DSPs were being put into situations where they were having to make decisions that were balanced between what the individual wanted and what was important to them, with what teams and guardians and other professionals wanted. And that was a really sticky position for direct support professionals to be in. So NADSP partnered with the University of Minnesota, DSP focus groups from around the country, people who were actually doing the work, and then advocates, people with lived experience, and other stakeholders to develop the code of ethics. In 2001, NADSP released the first code of ethics. It became a professional compass for DSPs, a way for DSPs to help guide their work, make those ethical decisions, and reference back to when they were trying to advocate for people and what was important for the people that they were serving. It became a tool to help decrease abuse, neglect, and exploitation by helping DSPs reflect on the decisions they were making. Were they making decisions that potentially were neglectful? Were they put in a situation where they were not doing something in the best interest of the people that they supported? It also focused on individual dignity, independence, and rights. Again, any of you that have been in the field as long as I have, we all remember, we had to count how many times we did something. We had to document that on a piece of paper. And while documentation requirements still exist, we really are beginning to see the fruits of a transition in this field from services delivered to people to services that are delivered with people and for people in their best interest. And I think one of the greatest things I've seen in the years I've been in the field is that transition, that refocus of the work that direct support professionals do has led to more independence for people being more actively involved in their decision making, people being more actively involved in completing tasks that otherwise people just assumed needed to be done for them. And it was the blueprint of a standard of conduct. It really was. As a professional, this is the level of professionalism. These are the standards of conduct that the field expects out of our direct support professionals. So, what are ethics? We're talking about a code of ethics, but it doesn't mean anything if we don't know what ethics actually are. Ethics are the moral principles that govern a person's
Okay.
behavior or the conducting of an activity. So it is the moral principles that say this is how you do something. This is how you do something in a way that doesn't infringe on someone's rights, in a way that fosters person-centeredness and independence. So we're just to open this up for a couple of minutes. Just wondering if we've got any folks that are interested in sharing any examples of an ethical issue that you may have faced in your professional career. Well, while you're thinking, I'm going to share one that I personally experienced. So I have had the honor of working in this field as a direct support professional all the way up to, a retiree that spent 35 plus years in the field. And as a young direct support professional, I supported a gentleman who was um, he faced a lot of physical challenges. He also had a very, very strong um, family that was very protective of him. This gentleman had for many years not shared with anyone that he was gay. And at a certain point in time, when he moved into his first semi-independent living situation, he decided to come out to his direct support professionals. And so he let a group of us know that was his sexual orientation and that he would like to find ways to be more involved with other like-minded people in the LGBTQ plus community. Now, keep in mind, this would have been probably early 90s. This was, before some of the current strides that have been made in advocacy around LGBTQ plus community. And so he was very, very anxious about folks knowing about this. He was very, very anxious about his family knowing about this, but he was also very, very adamant that he wanted to experience the culture. He wanted to develop relationships within the community. Um, we talked with him at length about how our services are driven, and that in order for us to support him in that, we needed to have a conversation with certain people. And so he opened it up so that we could meet with his SSA. He did not want his entire team to be involved. We had to advocate very strongly with the county board that there was absolutely nothing in rule that required the entire team to be part of a conversation to add something to the plan. And we also had to advocate that the plan, though the rule requires that a provider have a copy of the plan, it did not prohibit that plan from being carved out so that a provider only got the portion of the plan that applied to them. And so we were able to work with the SSA and with the county board to add some services to the plan that allowed us to take him to Columbus to participate in events like the DODD parade. We went to a bar with him and supported him. And we put those services in his plan in such a way that the plan only went to the providers who were providing those particular services. And so while there were some DSPs that worked with us who were not comfortable with delivering those services, they weren't comfortable with traveling to Franklin County and taking him to some of the different places where that community tend to get together. There were a few of us as DSPs that were very willing to support him. And so we had to work through a number of ethical dilemmas with that. Confidentiality. How did we get it into the plan? How did we share this with other DSPs? How did we ensure that his family only had what he wanted them to have because he was an adult and they were not his guardian? It was just more that, like, you don't want to disappoint your parents kind of thing, right? We had to work through the whole community integration. How did we help him integrate into this community? So many of the tenets that we're going to talk about in the code of ethics applied to that particular situation.
Any
Is there
others?
anybody else that has
Yeah.
one? Sorry, Tony, go ahead.
Yeah, I was just gonna say, is there any others out there? I've got one, but I don't want to share it unless somebody else has got one that they'll love to share. Should I go ahead, Ann, and share mine?
Yeah, please,
I,
Tony, go
yeah,
ahead.
okay.
Yep.
Well, look, this happened a long time ago, so I always carry it forward with me when it comes to thinking about how important a code of ethics is. But um, I was working in a program a long time ago where a group home with four people living in it, um, about 5 or 6 staff, but there were two women that worked second shift. One worked 4 to midnight, and one worked 3 to 11. Sally worked 3 to 11, and Joan worked 4 to midnight. Sally decided to stay a little late and do some paperwork. And she wanted to see and meet the new third shift person was coming in. His name was Robert. I made these names up, by the way, Ann, just FYI. Okay. so um, so Sally stays a little late. Joan's there 4 to midnight. Sally's there 3 to 11, but Sally stays till midnight. Robert comes in, and Sally notices right away that he's drunk. He smells like alcohol. And she goes and she gets a little concerned about that. And, she goes over to Joan and she says, Joan, Robert smells like alcohol. And Joan says, I know. It's okay. He's going through a messy divorce. He's going to be fine. He'll be okay. Um, so you want to talk about an ethical dilemma? What's your ethical dilemma here? This is a great example of a collision between personal ethics and professional ethics. The personal ethics is that Joan was trying to protect her coworker Robert, okay, and Sally was concerned about the state of care that was going to be provided by somebody who was inebriated and not really in control of his own behavior at that point, and came into work drunk and didn't think anything about it. So as we go through the scenarios today, you're going to see how the code of ethics played a part in that. And I can tell you at the end what happened in this story, what the end was. How's that, Ann? Okay.
Great, Tony. Thanks for
Oh,
setting that up.
sure.
Because we definitely want to make sure that we continue this conversation and carry this conversation through once we go through the different parts of the code of ethics.
Right.
Because I think it will help those of us who are on here today, right, to be like, okay, now I understand. That's an example that I can share. So
Right.
keep that in your mind as we move through this. Again, if you have scenarios that you would like to share with us. All All right, Haida, thank you. So, um, as I said, our system has evolved. The profession has evolved. The expectations put upon direct support professionals have certainly changed. And the work that you do continues to expand and morph and change every single day. And so NADSP recognized that, the field recognized that. And at the conference in Buffalo in 2024, um, or early, it might have been 2025. NADSP brought together folks at the conference, folks from Minnesota, Tony as a consultant, and they led a conversation with a large group of direct support professionals and other frontline supervisors and other DD professionals from around the country to talk about what did they think needed to be changed within the code of ethics? How has our profession changed? And are those changes reflected in the current code of ethics? And so the new code of ethics is the result of that conversation and many others that went on for about a 2 year period. And the result is the new code of ethics. And so what I've done is just done a side by side here of what the original code of ethics included, and then the changes in bold that are part of the new code of ethics. And so Tony's going to go through each of these different tenets within the code and talk a little bit about how it changed, why it changed, and how it's applicable to the work that you or the direct support professionals that you supervise do on a daily basis.
Okay, got it. Ian, and here we go, everybody. Hi. Well, nice to be here, and Ian and Haida, thanks for, and Christy also, thank you for allowing me to join your monthly seminar. Really glad to be here, glad to be part of this, and have been thrilled to be part of the revision of the Code of Ethics. I was actually involved in 2001 when I went to an anchor conference out in Phoenix, Arizona, and a group of people that came together and sat in a room for 2 days, solid 2 days, were the group from NADSP that I first met, and a group from the University of Minnesota that I first met. And we actually helped draft and redraft the Code of Ethics during that entire 2 day session that we spent together. That became the initial Code of Ethics in 2001. And it lasted until about a year and a half ago when what had happened was, and I'll tell this quick story. I was taking an ethics class for my social work license. I was still in Ohio at the time. I had to renew my social work license. And if you don't know this, in a lot of other professions, there's a mandate in some of those professions, like in social work, that you have to take 30 hours of CEUs every 2 years. And inside of that 30 hours, you have to have 3 hours of ethics. So here I was in 2024 with 27 hours of continuing education, and I didn't have my 3 hours of ethics. So I signed up for a 3 hours ethics course. And the instructor of that course was a guy from the University of Rhode Island who had helped write over the years many revisions to the social work code of ethics. And one of the things he said was that the code of ethics for social workers has changed dramatically over the last let's see, 5 years. And one of the reasons why it's changed is because a lot of things have changed in the human service field in general. For example, the use of technology, telehealth, right? Telebehavioral health has changed. And the use of social media has incorporated into this. And he gave some examples of how social workers who were seeing sort of clients in therapy were now on Facebook at a party with their client and on Facebook and posting it on Facebook. So the ethical dilemmas that were being created by social media, Facebook, Instagram, TikTok, whatever, and the use of social workers and doing therapy with particular clients violated every single principle of confidentiality and privacy at that point. So we're going to go through this ethical code for direct support professionals today. And I think, Anne, I think you captured it very well about why it's important to have this particular code of ethics. And for me, what happened is as soon as I finished that seminar, I picked up the phone in 2024 and called Joe Macbeth at the National Alliance for Direct Support Professionals. And I called Amy Yu to the University of Minnesota, and I said, it's time for us to revise our code of ethics. And they both agreed and said, you know what, you're right. We got to do this. So we started a group in late 2024 and all throughout 2025, as Ann had mentioned, seminars, focus groups, individuals that we met with, subject matter experts, people across the country contributed to this revision of the Code of Ethics. It was even a greater amount of people involved in this particular change of the Code of Ethics as compared to 2001. Advocacy is one of the few areas that hasn't changed too much. And advocacy, as a direct support professional, I will advocate with the people I support for justice, equity, inclusion, belonging in their communities. So what you're going to have with each of these 9 ethical tenets is you're going to have a broad ethical statement here, like right on your screen there, what's under advocacy. And again, as a DSP, I will advocate with the people I support. And then what you have is you have these tenets. You have ethical principles underneath each of these tenets. Okay. And again, enable people to communicate for themselves, partner with people I support in understanding and advocating and exercising their human and legal rights. Seek guidance for people I support, advocate for laws, regulations, policies. Some of that language is similar to what was in the code in 2001, and a lot of it has changed. Okay. So what you're going to have is you're going to have that broad statement across the top of each of these 9 tenets right there with advocacy. And then you're going to have several ethical statements underneath each of those codes. Hyde, if you want to go to the next slide, we'll do that. Here's the big one, confidentiality and privacy. As a direct support professional, I will promote, protect, and respect the confidentiality of people I support. Ask individuals how, when, and with whom they want their information shared. And your example that you gave of your ethical dilemma as a DSP that's a classic situation. Asking the individual how they want that information shared about their own personal matter is very important. Following confidentiality policies, disclose confidentiality only with the person's permission. Okay, only with the person's permission. What else? Safeguarding private information, share with me in confidence. Okay. Educating the people I support to understand what confidentiality is, its importance, and how to protect their own privacy. It is very common to think of people with developmental disabilities as individuals that don't have any sort of privacy, that like their life is an open book. And I think we need to pull back on that concept. And I'll give you an example of this one. It's happened a couple times in the place that I just retired from, where family member would 2 clients got into an altercation. All right, and you know they were hitting each other and striking each other. Well, one of the family members of one of the clients that was in that altercation called up the group home and wanted to know who the other client was that was involved in an altercation and what the name of the parent was for the client that had that altercation. And staff luckily realized that and pulled back and said, sorry, we can't give you that. You know, it's private information. So again, those simple things can actually happen that really challenge our ethical principles around confidentiality and privacy.
Yeah, I just wanted to speak, if
Yeah,
I
go
could,
ahead.
for a second on the very
Yeah,
last one. I think many of us, especially if you've worked in the field for a long time, the concept of confidentiality is not new. We all
right.
know what it is. But the tenet in here about educating the people that we support so that they understand what confidentiality is, to me, there are two important parts of that. The first is for themselves, for them to understand that they have a right to have personal thoughts and opinions and ideas that should only be shared amongst the people they want it to be shared with. But it's also making sure that they understand that they themselves have a responsibility of some confidentiality. As agency providers, most of you or many of you are serving people in congregate settings. And so you have multiple people living together. Sometimes those people have different degrees of abilities. So
That's right.
you may have one person who is engaging regularly on social media. They've got a Facebook page. They maybe are engaged with, you know, looking for friends or relationships with people on social media. And so they're talking about, well, this is where I live. Here's my address. Or, hey, here's the pictures from our party that we had the other night for so and so's birthday. And they're putting those on Facebook. So understanding and helping the people we support understand that they also have a responsibility to respect others that they share their homes with, that they need to be cognizant and aware of what they're sharing, not only again from the perspective of the confidentiality of the people they live with, but also from a safety perspective. So again, the whole idea of taking confidentiality as a concept that we deal with as professionals and figuring out how do we apply this to a skill that we can help the people that we support build, that not only protects themselves, don't give out your social security number, don't
Yeah,
give out
perfect.
your address,
Right.
but also protects their roommates and the people that they live and work with. I think that's the next step of confidentiality that we don't often think about as professionals.
Good point, Ann. Yeah, and my favorite ethical statement in there is to just above that, where it says seek guidance from supervisors, managers, or policies when unsure of the correct course of action. Um, I think that if you're confronted by a confidentiality issue in the work that you're doing with a particular client, somebody calls up the house and wants to find out about a person's information. Your first step is to say, hold on, let me check with my supervisor, my manager, somebody else that I can consult with before I give you that information, and putting the brakes on in terms of sharing information. So yeah, good point, Ann. You're right. That is the next step. So, Haida, do you want to go to the next
Yeah,
slide?
I'll just add in too,
Yeah,
kind of like
yeah,
as an example, things for us to be thinking about. Tony, you had mentioned like virtual doctor's appointments, right?
yes,
So we go different places and do different things, and just it kind of goes along the lines with this. If we're going to have a virtual doctor's appointment with an individual, making sure that we're in an office or a closed space to
private room.
maintain,
Yes,
yeah,
yes,
that confidentiality and privacy. We're so grateful for our virtual day and age, right? But whether it be a team meeting, whether it be a doctor's appointment of some sort, just making sure that we have those closed door meetings. So,
yes, absolutely, yes, and making sure that there's a private space within the house where a person can go and have a conversation with a doctor or a psychiatrist, which is kind of important. Telebehavioral health has become a huge stream of service in our system, but it's often done in a way that challenges confidentiality and privacy. So I think making sure that we have that. But yeah, good point, Ida. Justice, fairness, equity, and inclusion. The and inclusion part is new on this, but as a direct support professional, I will advocate for and promote justice, fairness, equity, and inclusion for the people I support. Again, a couple of bullets under here. Again, Anne, going back to your point, if you look in the middle of the page there, ensure people feel free to express their identities as desired. That speaks volumes to your example that you gave of your ethical dilemma that you faced as a DSP coming forward. and having this person who identified themselves as gay and wanted to tell certain people, but not tell others, and making sure that in fact they had a freedom to do that. This is actually there's some new language in here, but ensuring, if you look at the second bullet, ensuring that my own biases do not interfere with honoring and supporting people. Okay. So let's say you have a client that expresses that that they're gay, that they want to go to a pride community festival. Okay. But you don't believe in that. That's not something that you believe in. You don't think that homosexuality or gay expression is what should happen in the world. What do you do? What do you do at that point? How do you take that bias and turn it into something that can actually be useful to your particular client? And again, being aware of that is one thing, but trying to put your foot down and saying, no, you can't go to that pride march or that pride parade is not the right way. Okay. That challenges it. That's an ethical violation at that point. If you're saying that, but if you're saying, hey, I'm uncomfortable with that, maybe somebody else can go with you. Maybe there's another person in the home that can actually take you to that. It sounds like an interesting event. I'm sorry, I can't do it, but maybe there's somebody else that can. Okay. So again, these are the things that challenge every single staff person that works in our industry. And when you walk in the door of the home that you're working in, you're bringing with you your biases. You're bringing with you those past beliefs and past concerns that will challenge you sometimes at work. So, and Heidi, anything you want to say on that one too? I think I have to tell you, I think what I see happening in our field today, and Heidi, I don't know if we'll talk about this, but in the middle there, it says, teach people I support about inclusion and opportunities to promote it in their lives. I see more and more direct support professionals than ever before getting people out in the community and getting them included in things in the community at a record number of events and functions and things like that. And it's so great to see that. I think that is a strength of this particular area, the code of ethics, and it's the strength of our field. But again, I'm pointing out a couple of these ethical statements, but again, those are the ones that caught my attention. So
there's a couple of points I
Yeah.
want to make. And I want to be really, really clear that none of us are implying that your personal values, beliefs, are inappropriate or not right.
Right. Yeah.
What we want to kind of challenge you to do is to explore ways that you can identify that your value and belief is different than the value and belief of the person that you're supporting, and take action on that, and that action is productive versus, again, we're just not going to do it because it doesn't fit into
It doesn't fit
my
in.
value
Yeah.
system. And so there's never an intent for any judgment on the part of us, or hopefully agency leadership or supervisory staff, to make a judgment call about
Mm-hmm.
a DSP's beliefs and values either.
Mm-hmm.
So this whole idea of justice, fairness, and equity goes both ways. But from a professional perspective, what the code of ethics is really challenging you to do is, like Tony said, which is to identify that the beliefs and values that you have are different than the beliefs and values that the person you support have, and that can create unintentional bias, and
Mm-hmm.
that I need to be professional enough to say to my supervisor or to the person I'm supporting or to a coworker,
Mm-hmm.
this is not something that I'm able to do, but it is very important for Tony. So how do we make it happen for Tony, even though I personally can't do it? So I
Right.
just don't ever want a DSP to walk away thinking that because we're giving an example or we're saying, hey, you have to help the person do this, that outweighs your personal beliefs and values.
Mm-hmm.
It's not about one being more valid than the other, more important than the other. It's finding ways to work together so that both persons' values and beliefs are honored. So that is the first thing that I wanted to say. And I'm sure I'm going to have a senior moment and just say to you, I can't remember what the second thing was. Hold on, let me go back and look through these really quick.
Well, and if you look at that bottom statement, advocate for my own fair and equitable treatment as an employee, ensuring justice and equity for all. So
Absolutely.
so so there's an addition to that. There's a new ethical statement under justice, fairness, equity, and inclusion, which includes that you have the right and you have the ability to ensure fair and equitable treatment as an employee as well. So again, I think that there as you just mentioned, this goes both ways. You know, we want justice, fairness, and equity and inclusion for our clients and the people we support, but we also want to make sure that it's available to our staff and employees as well. So
And I think knowing too that this is the agency group, the conversation is a little different
yeah,
because what we need for agency leadership and supervisory staff to really think about is how do I ensure that equity for both the people I supervise as well as the people we're all supporting. So I'm glad that you pointed that one out,
yeah,
Tony. And then the other point that I wanted to make about inclusion is I think that we have to recognize that many of the people we support have not had the opportunity presented to them to make some of these decisions, to decide really what they want to be included in, what they enjoy, what they like, because there are certain people that, depending upon kind of their living arrangement, maybe they haven't been given those opportunities. And so we have to recognize that. And part of inclusion is really working hard at giving people experiences so that they then can make personal decisions about what they enjoy, what groups they want to be a part of, how they want to engage with their community. So sometimes it starts very basic with just presenting a couple of options and saying, hey, I know you've never done this before, but we're going to go give it a try. Do you want to go give it a
yeah,
try with
yeah,
us?
yeah.
So that people have that opportunity to learn and develop um, an opinion about what they want to be included in.
Good point, Ann. How do you want to go to the next one? Well, I like the way we're covering these. Person-centered supports. Um, as a direct support professional, I will work in partnership with the people I support, approaching their goals and aspirations with flexibility, curiosity, creativity, and commitment. And I love the addition of this change in the ethical statement here. This flexibility, curiosity, creativity, and commitment. And again, some of the ethical principles underneath that tenet have changed as well. But applying person-centered practices, collaborating with individuals and their teams to understand what is important to them, to and for them. Um, Balancing expectations of the individuals I support with other professional responsibilities, seeking help from others when needed. Okay. Ensuring rights of individuals to live as independently as possible, direct their own lives with appropriate support, assist individuals who are unable to rely on speech or unable to see or hear or engage using their preferred methods. Okay. Sometimes that requires different ways of communicating and different avenues on helping people communicate in a way that is functional and practical for that individual. Seek guidance from the people I support about their culture, preferences, social networks, and needs. Okay. And Ann, you highlighted this one. Seek guidance from the people I support. So actually going to the people you support and trying to understand their culture, their social networks, their preferences. A very important ethical principle. Um, be prepared, adaptable, and dedicated to their goals and preferences. Consulting with a support team when uncertain. Engage individuals in advocating for themselves in ways that work for them. Seek the person's guidance when I see policies, practice, or desires of other limiting of desires of other limiting their choices. Okay. Support each person's right to manage relationships as they choose. Okay. Again, Anne, going back to example, your example that you gave in the beginning, um, uh, you're being person centered by helping support that person in expressing their sexuality, their desire to engage with people of their own kind and of their own interest. Okay. That's really what is happening here with this particular area of the code of ethics.
It really ties into the first one of advocacy. Um, we all have experienced um, the dynamics of the team process.
Yeah.
And so we understand that teams and SSAs and guardians have strong opinions. Sometimes they have to meet certain regulatory requirements. Sometimes they feel like they have to, I'll just say it, they
Yeah.
have to do CYA. Uh, um,
Yeah.
and so it is a uncomfortable place sometimes to be in as a direct support professional or frontline supervisor, to want to somehow convey back to the team, whether that's, at the table because you have a seat at the table, or maybe as a direct support professional, running it up the chain till it gets back to the team. It is often a difficult place and a very uncomfortable place to be in, to
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
challenge the
But
assumed power of the team.
yeah,
But it is so important to build that based on the person's wants and needs.
you can't go into a team process and think there's a hierarchy there. You have to go in thinking that everybody's there on equal footing. And once a team takes over and creates its own hierarchy, that's when problems arise with person-centered supports. People with developmental disabilities have long there's been a long history of ignoring their interests and their desires within a team process. And I think that the more that we focus on the fact that the team is created for the person we're supporting and they are in charge of that process, the better off we'll be at that point. So yeah, great point. Next slide. And if anybody's got any questions on anything in these slides, let us know. If you can, just pop a question in the chat, or take yourself off mute and ask away. But physical and emotional well-being hasn't really changed too much from the previous code. But again, as a direct support professional, I'll promote the emotional, physical, spiritual, and personal well-being of the people I support. I will respect their autonomy while ensuring safety and reducing harm. Develop and nurture respectful relationships while maintaining professional boundaries. Teach people to recognize signs and symptoms of physical and mental health concerns. Okay. Assist people in understanding and advocating for their sexual and reproductive health, enlisting professional guidance as needed. Teach individuals to understand and report abuse, neglect, exploitation, or harm. Very important area of a code of ethics. I see this actually in other codes of ethics, and whether it's psychology, social work, or what that frequently from time to time, people will come into a counseling session and come in for one thing, and then all of a sudden they're reporting domestic violence in their lives, and making sure that in fact the social worker or the therapist is working with the person to make sure that they're reporting that, and making sure that in fact they recognize that it's important and it's reported. Partner with each person and support their network to identify risk and create safeguards. Work with a person and their team to find alternatives. There we go. Okay. And advocate for removing unnecessary restrictions and limitations in support plans. Whoa, what's that all about? Okay. So where did that come from? Well, that, sometimes our support plans can really become restrictive. And they're not, and they don't change over time. So a person's been on one restriction that happened 5 years ago because of one incident, And that restriction still is in the plan 5 years later, even though they don't have that challenging behavior that they had 5 years ago. So, so again, I think that frontline staff can be very in tune to that in the team process and can advocate for removing those unnecessary restrictions. And then finally, and this is a new one, recognizing the effects of past and present trauma and create environments that promote healing and prevent future harm. Great recognition on the part, I think, of our writers of this new code of ethics to recognize that past traumatic experiences can really play a part in the physical and emotional well-being of the current person that you're working with. So again, I encourage everybody to take a look at this particular area of the code of ethics. But you know, it's one thing. It's one thing to take the person to the doctor and promote, you know, physical well-being. It's another thing to really recognize that you want to understand and advocate for their sexual and reproductive health as well. It's a totally different sort of realm at that point. But Anne, Heine, any comments on that one? Again, this is a big. This one has a broad sort of brushstroke as an area of code of ethics. So
I think the only one that I want to comment on is that for many years I've heard people with lived experience say to me, I don't know how to report when something bad happens to me.
yeah, right,
And I think because the system has been built upon the assumption that a person can't report that for themselves. We haven't created a process that makes it easy for people
Mhm.
to call a phone number or, you know, report abuse or neglect, even at the county level, even though county boards have a 1-800 number on their website on how to report abuse and neglect 24/7. How many people you serve know what that number is or where to even find that number? There's always an assumption that the professional is going to do that.
Yeah,
So I
right,
think, again,
yes,
teaching people how to
Mhm.
understand what abuse, neglect, and exploitation is, and how to report that themselves as well, is just it's necessary to flow in line with the other tenets of the code, which is supporting people's independence, giving them the right to make decisions. So that one stands out to me, just as really important in here.
right, right. And you may you know at the end of this session you may look at another area of this another ethical or ethical statement here, and that one may stick out to you. Um, Certain ones stick out to me as I read this code of ethics, and so I think that as you're going through this, if you identify with a particular area of this code of ethics, not only this broad area of physical and emotional well-being, but any sort of ethical statement that sticks out to you, let us know. I mean, I'd love to. And as we're going through this, you might come up with examples of ethical challenges and dilemmas that you faced in the past in that particular area as you work with somebody in the past. So, Heidi, you want to go to the next slide,
Yeah,
or did
I was just
you want to
gonna
comment
kind
on
of,
that?
yeah, I was just gonna add in there too, like when we're thinking about restrictions, in ISPs, it also kind of makes my mind think about, restrictions from a medication perspective. If there's
Absolutely.
PRNs that, might be prescribed to someone, maybe the person's saying that they don't want to take them anymore, or
Hmm.
this
Hmm.
makes my body feel weird when I take that medication. So kind of thinking about that, we've got DSPs going to doctor's appointments, and how do those conversations look, and how do we bring that back to the team of, supporting the individual both for their physical, emotional well-being, but also this is their voice, and this is what they're saying about, the medication, or whatever the issue might
Yeah.
be. So just kind of thinking through that too.
Yeah. Who has gone to who on this call today has gone to a doctor's appointment with a particular client or person you're supporting, and the doctor started to talk to you first?
Mhm. Yeah.
Yeah, there you go. Okay, I see some hands up on that one. Is it so that has happened, right? Yeah, there you go. So again, that's part of this particular area of the code of ethics right there. You're wanting to refocus the doctor's attention and focus the doctor's question to the person that you just brought along to the appointment, it's their appointment, and you're there to support them. So you want to get that conversation focused on the client, the person supported, and have the doctor address them first. But again, I bet that's happened a lot and still happens today, right? Still happens today.
And
Yeah, yeah.
and
Well,
my little trick is always, when you go to the doctor and the doctor says, "Hey, Ann, has Tony been having any odd, symptoms, da da da?" And I will immediately take that question and I will turn it to Tony. "Hey, Tony, can you tell the doctor about any of those symptoms you've been having?" And it's just a nice way.
yeah, yeah.
I help advocate for my brother who's been dealing with kidney cancer. And my brother is a very introverted person. He would walk out with like still having none of his questions answered and be like, "Oh, that was a good appointment." I'm like, "They didn't answer any of your questions." So it's gotten to the point where the doctors are like talking to me because I'm much more extroverted than he is. But even in those scenarios, I try to go back to, "Hey, brother, have you had any more symptoms? How's your pain?" And directing everything back to them. And it's just an easy way to do it and not step on the ego of the doctors sometimes.
That's right. Yes. Yeah. So, by the way, Ann, you must have been at my doctor's appointment last week. I mean, that Tony's acting a little strange these days, and he must have been hanging around my doctor's office anyway. So, um, this one is this one is the biggest area of change in the code of ethics. We used to call this area integrity and responsibility. And we completely changed it around because we heard from DSPs and frontline supervisors as we were going through this that particular area of the code of ethics, when you mention integrity and responsibility, it didn't really capture what we wanted to say about our industry. But this particular area of the code of ethics is solely focused on the direct support professional. Let's go through it and I'll show you. As a direct support professional, I will support people in leading the lives they choose. I will build strong partnerships with them, their families, support networks, and other professionals in the community. I recognize that these partners rely on me to bring my best self. Let me say that again. I recognize that these partners rely on me to bring my best self to this profession and to be accountable for my actions. Okay. That particular statement, all of this is brand new. And we've completely revised this area to really reflect what we think is important in our industry, our field of practice, okay? That direct support practice led by direct support professionals needs to have boundaries and other kinds of areas around it that identify it as a true professional field. This particular area of the code of ethics really does that. Understand and appreciate and interact effectively with people from different cultural backgrounds through learning, self-reflection, and adapting my behavior to connect respectfully with others. Reflect my own values and biases. Recognizing, here's that statement about biases again. Recognizing how they may influence my professional decisions. Acknowledge my limitations and seek guidance from people I support, colleagues, supervisors, mentors when needed. Take responsibility for my decisions and actions and learn from mistakes. Please, please, please take that to heart, okay? Take responsibility for my decisions and actions and learn from my mistakes. Promote accountability among coworkers and others involved in the lives of people I support. Be transparent and honest in all communications. Extend kindness and respect to each individual and to members of their network, including family, friends, neighbors, and professionals. And then finally, recognizing my own dignity and worth. Let's say that again. Recognize my own dignity and worth. Advocating for respectful treatment and seeking support when needed. Okay? Huge changes in this area. And I think changes for the better. This talks about our field in a way that I think is very refreshing and is new. It's very refreshing. And it just says volumes about where our industry needs to go to be a profession and recognized as a profession. Ann, any comments on that? I mean, I love this area of the code of ethics, so love it. So
Tony, I remember coming up to Cleveland
Yeah,
and visiting with you and the Welcome House team at a large day-long retreat
that's
that you
right.
did with your staff,
Yeah,
which was amazing. And I just want to challenge, since again, this is the agency session, I just want to challenge our agency leadership to really pay attention to this particular one and look at how can you integrate these things into your organizational culture. So understanding, appreciating, and interacting effectively with people from different cultural backgrounds. What do you do as an organization to facilitate learning about different cultures, not just the different cultures of the people you support,
right. Yeah,
but
that's right.
also the different cultures of the people that work within your organization?
Yeah,
How do you share those? There's an agency in Franklin County that hires a lot of multicultural staff, and they specifically do events where those staff will come in and they will dress in traditional clothing.
yep,
They will
yep,
prepare a traditional meal, and they're doing that not only for their coworkers, but they're also bringing the folks that are served by that agency to the event, so that there is just more respect and learning of respect for the different cultures. How do you, as an agency, promote that discussion we had earlier about
mm,
respecting people's values
mm,
and beliefs, so that biases are recognized, but they're recognized in a way that it's non-judgmental? So do you have conversations about that? Do you have
yeah,
conversations
yeah,
about, at our next staff retreat, we're going to talk about those ethical dilemmas when you're in a situation being asked to do something that doesn't fit in with your religion or your values or your culture, and how do you address those things? So I just challenge agencies to look at how they can build this tenant into the trainings and the policies and procedures and all the things that go into creating your organizational culture.
absolutely. Yeah,
I
it's a
just,
this. Yeah,
yeah.
go
Oh,
ahead.
sorry, Tony. I just
Right.
have to say, and that back in my provider world days, that was one of my favorite things that we used to host was lunch around the world. And we encouraged all of our DSPs and the individuals to participate in, prepare, like you said, preparing meals. Our staff would wear, what they would have traditionally worn, but it allowed an opportunity for everyone. I think actually the first time I had plantains was at that lunch,
That's
along
right.
with many other delicious items, and that was years ago. But I think that it's a great way to kind of bring everyone together for lots of different reasons.
Yeah,
Yeah.
absolutely. Yeah, very.
And lots
Yeah.
of organizations are developing DSP committees, um, ways for DSPs and frontline supervisors to be more engaged in policy making and decision making, which helps the direct support professional to actually recognize their worth when they are part of the decision making process within agencies, when their opinions and ideas and feedback are valued, and there's a way to do that in a formal, some type of formal structure within an organization. Again, it builds towards helping our DSPs recognize their own dignity and worth within our service delivery system.
Yeah. Yeah. Well said. Well said. Time-wise, we should go on to the next slide. Let's do that.
Yes.
Okay. Yeah. Self-determination and choice. As a direct support professional, I honor and assist the people I support to make choices and direct their lives to the fullest extent possible and within the context of their culture and uniqueness. Um, I'm hearing culture time and time and again in this code, recognizing culture, respecting culture. This particular area of the code of ethics has that in it as well. But educate and support individuals to make choices and practice self-determination in all areas of life: physical, intellectual, emotional, social, financial, and environment. And Ian, by the way, when we were going through the code of ethics in 2001, and then we revised it again, I noticed that self-determination was in every other single code of ethics of a human service field, nursing, social work, psychology, OT, PT. When you walk into a doctor, the doctor may give you a recommendation, but ultimately that recommendation is a recommendation only. It's not a choice. The choice is still yours on whether you follow the treatment or the recommendation from the doctor. All right. So there's the difference. Respecting each person's decision or right to make decisions, take risks, understand responsibilities, um, supporting each individual's potential for lifelong learning and growth. Okay. Um, teach people to understand and use mistakes as valuable opportunities for learning and growth. Supporting the right of individuals to direct their services. Here we go again. Okay. That goes back to person-centered supports as well. Understanding individuals as legal representatives still have the right to make choices about their lives and seek guidance from a supervisor manager when unsure. Okay. Respect and honor cultural differences and how self-determination and decision-making are understood and practiced. Okay. So if you're working with a client from a particular culture and they make decisions a certain way, respecting that choice, and sometimes people from a different culture may involve 4 or 5 other people in their decisions, and respecting that and honoring that is a way to go as well. So, any thoughts or comments on that one? No.
So
Okay.
years ago, Tony,
No.
we used to call it dignity. We used to call it dignity of
Dignity,
risk,
risk.
right?
Yes. Right. Yes. That's right.
Um,
Yeah.
so it is again honoring that idea that people have you learn from your experiences, right?
Right.
And while we do have to ensure health and safety, we do have a responsibility to ensure that we're not knowingly putting people into a risky situation. We also have to balance that with the person's right to say, you know what, I am going to try this, and or you know what, I don't really care that the team said that what's important for me is to get into my ideal body weight.
Yeah.
I'm going to have the ability to say, I choose food over that.
Yeah.
We also, though, have to recognize, too, that sometimes we support people who don't have the ability to easily communicate that to us.
Yeah.
So, as direct support professionals, it is so important that you are recognizing nonverbal cues, gestures, reactions, emotions, etc., as being part of self-determination. And so, what does it mean when I refuse to participate in one of the outcomes that's in my plan? And as a DSP, I have to figure out what is more important, the fact that there's some regulatory, requirement that I document outcomes. And so, I'm just going to push until I can get something documented, or my ethical responsibility to go to the team or through my supervisor or however I get to the team to say, Anne has refused to do this 4 times in the last week. I think there's something going on.
Yeah.
I think that there's actually a reason. And hey, team, we need to start delving into why is that? And people have a right to change their minds. That is
Yeah.
also part of self determination. So while I may have signed off on a plan or agreed to a plan 2 months ago that
Yeah.
said, yes, I'm willing to do this, I may have decided I no longer want to do this. And I've given the example before of a plan where the provider was required or asked to take the person to their barber shop, every other month or whatever, to get a haircut. That had been important to him. It was something that was in his plan as far as, his personal appearance or whatever. And all of a sudden, he was having behaviors before they would go. And he was like, I'm not going, I don't want to go. And come to find out, he started liking this new band that had long hair, and he wanted to emulate his band. And so he wanted to grow his hair, but he was having a hard time communicating that, hey, I want to look like these guys in the band. So he changed his mind. And
Yeah.
people have a right to do that. That is self determination. So
Yeah.
look for those verbal cues and then also figure out how, as a DSP,
Yeah.
do I communicate what I've learned about the person maybe wanting to change their mind? How do I get that to the team for reconsideration or a new meeting?
Yeah, and also teams can get very controlling, and one way you can get controlling is you take the team takes the approach of this person. We can't allow this person to make any mistakes. Yeah, they right. They gotta get it right all the time. We've got to get it right for them. In reality, making mistakes is part of life,
Exactly.
and we all make them, and we all got them. So why not? Why is it uncomfortable to allow people that we support to make a mistake and learn from it? And again, I just throw that out there for consideration as well. But again, good comments. So next slide. Okay, here we go.
All right. So you're going to get a handout when we send you everything that has a ethical scenario group discussion. I'm only going to go through one of these today just because of time. But please take a look at this when you get it. If you're a frontline supervisor, think about using this in your next team meeting with your DSPs and go over some of these ethical dilemmas. So the first one that we have is Maria wants to join a local art club, but a staff member dismisses the idea, saying it's too advanced for her. The team moves on without further exploring the option. Maria later asked her DSP, why can't I go to the art club? And the DSP knows Maria has a right to pursue this interest and that assumptions by others are limiting her opportunity.
Mhm.
What NADSP tenants do you guys think is being challenged in that scenario? Which of the ones we've gone over?
There's a couple. So,
Anybody?
any answers? Any thoughts on that one?
So I
Can you
think it
ask
could
the
be a
question
number of
again?
them, Tony.
What's that?
Yeah, so
Go
based
ahead.
on that scenario, where Maria wants to join the art club, but her team has just dismissed the idea, which of the NADSP tenants that we've talked about, like advocacy, self-determination, which of those tenants do you think applies to that scenario? And there are multiple.
I think the advocacy and the self-determination for sure, because she wants to do that. And
Yep.
as the DSP, you should be advocating for her, choice.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
Absolutely. Thank you,
Agreed with
Michaela.
you. Yep.
You're welcome.
Agreed.
I think,
Any others?
oh, sorry.
No, go
I
ahead,
think it's
Marlama.
the self-determination too, because and the efficacy, like the lady said, because it's her right. After all, it's her right. When it's all said and done, it's her right to be able to choose or not choose what she would like to do. And she's very adamant about it. So being a DA, you have to support that. You have to, or you should support it.
Absolutely.
Thank you. Good comment. Yeah.
So I think
Any
in
other?
addition to
Yeah.
those two, also we could look at the tenant under the justice, fairness, equity, and inclusion. So helping people identify how they want to be included, where they want to be included, how they access their community. I think also the person-centered supports tenant also would apply here. And I also think relationships and social roles, respect, specifically respect
Mhm.
in the concept of it is not fair for us to make a decision about her ability to engage in something because we feel it's above her skill set. I can go and try something totally new and not be able to do it. Well, I've just learned that guess what? Maybe I don't, maybe this just isn't right for me. Um, so I think respecting the person's decision about wanting to engage in it without making a judgment call that it's not something that they would be successful at.
Yeah, and it reminds me of the conversation we were just having about dignity of risk, right? Like, you know,
Right, right.
how many
Absolutely.
times have we ourselves signed up for a class, whether it be art or maybe a fitness class that might be above our level, but we learned, right, when we got there, and we either choose to remain or choose to make that choice, you know, to do something different. But yeah, absolutely, the risk and
Yeah.
respect.
So again, just because of our time constraints, there's another scenario on here, and you'll get this as a handout. So take a little time, think about the scenarios. Again, I encourage you, if you are a frontline supervisor, to think about how you can um, implement this discussion into team meetings and staff meetings that you're having, coming up with scenarios, asking your DSPs for situations that they've been in, which they feel they have had to make a decision that's put them in, or they've got a situation where they've been in an ethical dilemma where they've had to make a decision. So I just can't encourage you enough as supervisors to continue this conversation on with your direct support professionals.
Yeah, and then just well, you're going to talk about technology. That's one of the big changes here. But also, if you go to the NADSP website, you'll see not only the code of ethics, you're going to see something called a practice guideline, which will include the use of technology as well. So, Ian, if you want to, but also, Annie, and I didn't tell you this, but just recently, Jerry Smith, who's a film producer from the University of Minnesota, just recently finished 9 individual uh, videos that describe each of the 9 areas of the code of ethics. So I just want to make sure that they could be up on the website by now as well. So and I think that Jerry just did them in sign language as well as plain language as well as regular language. So so again, I think those videos they may be up there on the website as well. You could take a look at it.
That's exciting. I knew
Yeah,
that there were videos for
yeah.
the original code, so I was hoping that they would do updates. I did
They did
pull this
updates.
use.
Yes. Yeah, they did the updates. So
Wonderful.
yeah,
I did pull this use of technology just as one example out of the guidebook,
the guidebook.
just because technology has such an impact. It is so frequently changing that it is just really, really important to think about how technology fits into the ethical dilemmas, what impact technology has on those ethical decisions that we have to make as professionals. So you will have a link to the guide as well as to the DSP Code of Ethics itself. It will be in this slide deck, so you'll be able to go directly to the link. I do want to kind of wrap up the conversation with a short 3-minute video that really, in my opinion, kind of gets to a
Mhm.
practical example of the ethical decisions that we face as professionals in this field. So Heida's gonna pull that up with for us, and then we'll do a quick wrap up with the last 5 minutes or so that we'll have.
We met a direct support professional who told us about a man that he supports who loved Harley Davidson motorcycles, and the entire culture of Harley Davidsons and the dress and the clothing and everything. The direct support professional wanted to help this man live some of that culture. I believe she was also involved in motorcycles and clubs and things like that. And, help the man go down to the local Harley Davidson motorcycle shop to meet the owner, to meet some of the people that worked there, and to help him be part of that community. That was his community. That's where he felt comfortable. And not only did he go down and spend some time with the people, he met people in a motorcycle club. He went out for rides on a sidecar with some Harley Davidson riders, and he was part of that club. And this direct support professional and the others that worked with this man, who may have some value judgments against Harley Davidsons and that community, they didn't judge him. They honored his wishes. They honored his dreams, and they helped him find that community. And that community was incredibly gracious to this man with a disability and included him on all sorts of activities and rides and fundraising events. And this is really what direct support professionals should be doing. You know, we've also heard a lot of stories where direct support professionals would say, no, I think that's inappropriate. That's not a good culture for you. And we've heard stories like that, and that's unethical. We should not be judging other people's wishes or dreams or desires. We should do everything that we can to support them. Whether we think it's right or wrong is irrelevant. Direct support professionals have to walk that line without judgment, and sometimes may have to advocate to higher-ups that it's okay to do, and take some risk, and make sure that the people that we support have all of the information that they need to make those decisions on their own. And we should not be making those decisions for anybody. Our responsibility is to give you that information, make sure that you understand the consequences of a decision that you make, and then have fun. That's what it's all about.
Amen. So, Anne, can I finish my should I finish my ethical story that I gave at the beginning and how it
Absolutely.
ended? All right, here you go. All right, real quickly. You remember the story was about Sally and Joan. Sally worked 3 to 11. Joan worked 4 to midnight. Robert was a third shift staff person. Sally stayed over from 3 to 11. She stayed from 11 to 12. She saw Robert. Robert was drunk and on the job, coming into work drunk. Joan said, "Don't worry about it, Sally. I've taken care of him. He'll be okay." That ended with almost a disaster. What was not known is that Robert had been coming in drunk to work for like weeks, and Joan was trying to get him in shape and trying to help him. He was going through a messy divorce. He was all over the place. Sally luckily called somebody right away to come in, and Robert was immediately sent home, dismissed. And by the way, Joan was also let go from the job because she had actually allowed this to go on for weeks. And you can only imagine what the scenario could have been, where Robert could have been drunken on the job, fallen asleep, a fire starts in the house, and the next thing you know, everybody's gone at that point. So the risk was very high. But that's a great example of personal ethics versus professional ethics. That's why you need to have a code of ethics. That's it, right there. Okay. That's professionalism, accountability, and growth. That's a great example of accountability. That Sally's accountability was to the people that she supported. Joan's accountability was to whom? Who was Joan accountable to? She was accountable to Robert.
To Robert.
Yeah, that's right. Yes. Thank you.
Absolutely.
Yes. Yeah, she was thinking about Robert's needs. She wasn't thinking about her client's needs. She was thinking about Robert. Okay. So again, sorry to carry that on, Ian, but I wanted to finish that story to make sure that people knew that there's this always a collision potentially between personal ethics and your friendships and your personal responsibilities, your personal ethics to a professional code of ethics. The code of ethics for the profession takes precedent. So
Absolutely. Thank you so much, Tony. So a couple of things before we go back to the slides. Carol commented just a little bit ago, and I want to share her comment when we were talking about doctor's appointments and helping people have their voice during those. She said she's noticed that younger doctors and nurses are much better at
Yeah.
that, and I think there's been
Right.
an emphasis on
Yes.
training.
Yes.
I know for sure that the Cleveland Clinic does some very specific disability focused training with their staff. So I think we're seeing changes. Thank you for sharing that example. Um, uh, Rakrisha,
And good
I'm
to
going to
and good
talk about.
and good to see
Go
you,
ahead.
Carol. Good to see you, Carol. So, yeah.
I am going to talk about that right now, Rakrisha. So, these are links. When you get the session record or the email sent to you, you'll be able to open this and click on these links. So, the new videos that Tony was talking about, when they are available, they were not available yesterday.
Right.
I didn't check the website today, but they were not up yesterday. The NADSP Code of Ethics, if you click on that link, will take you to the NADSP Code of Ethics page, and I'm sure that's where those videos will be once they're published.
Yeah.
As I said earlier, the training we did or this session today does not meet the requirements for the Code of Ethics training. That training is available free of charge through DODD My Learning. So that link will take you directly there so you can take that required training. And then NADSP just did a webinar in June
Right.
where they introduced the new Code of Ethics. We've talked about a lot of the same things, but if you're interested, you can go watch that there. And then thank you to NADSP for many of the materials and information that we shared in today's presentation. We will be back again on August 20th from 10 to 11:30 for the agency session. And I am so sorry, I cannot remember what the topic is for next month, but we will get that out. You will know that when you get your email follow up to today's session. Thank you all for joining us. Any other quick questions or comments before we wrap up?
Thanks everybody for joining us today. It was really great to see everybody, and thank you for your great participation. Thank you.
Thank you.
Tony, thank you for being with us, and thank you guys for what you do every day. It does not go unnoticed. Have a wonderful day.
Thank
Bye
you,
bye.
You too.
everyone.
Bye bye.